Welcome, Walnut. I'm Lara, but you can call me Lazz, your host for Walnut Wednesday. This is your reminder to be brave, be yourself, and know that you can make the world a better place just by what you decide today. Here, I'm going to share my weekly walnuttings with you on a Wednesday. Hello, Walnut. It's me, Lazz, here for another episode of Walnut Wednesday, and we are in the group of 10. So Kate is back. Welcome, Kate.
Hey.
Hello. How you doing on the air?
Well, I'm drinking wine. I'm drinking wine probably for the first time on the podcast. Yeah. So make of that as you will.
So Walnut, Kate and I were chatting a little bit offline, and then we were getting into some real good juicy stuff. So we were like, oh, we better press record. And then Kate kind of looked at me and I looked at her, and Kate was like, I think I need to get a vino. And I said, I've got a drink in the fridge too. So we're both, if you're watching on the YouTubes, we both have a little glass of some walnut. Why I want to record is because it has been an absolute horrible, disgusting past couple of weeks. And if you listen to episode 121, it was quite fresh, and I was kind of in the thick of it and just talking about how I've just got so much overwhelm, so much Weltschmerz. I feel like I couldn't breathe. I still have it a little bit, but it's going away now. So I thought this is a perfect opportunity, Walnut, to discuss with Kate and you, and just get some more additional perspectives on this feeling, because I know that it's not just me going through this. It's really a sense of just overwhelm, I think, is the only word. I feel a lot of despair and melancholy, and it sounds so dramatic, but it's really heavy. It's really heavy, Walnut. So I just thought, what a better way to kind of release and express and discuss than to have Kate here to guide through this. So Kate, do you have any thoughts on how you've been feeling at the same time?
Yeah, really similarly. I think we'll probably use this word a lot, but tired, just tired, emotionally, mostly emotionally, mentally, I guess, and just being like wanting to kind of switch off from stuff, but ultimately what I want to switch off from is my own brain. And it feels sort of like it feeds into itself, like obsessive thoughts and things like that. So yeah, I've been in that. I've been kind of in a weird up and down recently, mostly down, but like less down and more down, if that makes sense. And yeah. I'm trying to upswing, but yeah, we were just found that, as often is the case, you and I were sort of on a similar vibe, I guess, or journey, and it was good to sort of go through it together and talk it out. And now we're giving that a go on here, I suppose.
Yeah. So in the couple weeks that have passed, Walnut, I have been, as Kate was saying, there's been a lot of intrusive thoughts, lots of bully demon, and lots of just feeling really down on myself. And I kind of described it in a live video on the Walnut Tree. It feels like similar to when you're going through a little bit of grief and you just want the world to stop so you can catch up, but I don't even know if I want to catch up to it. I don't even know if it sounds really depressing. I don't want to be a part of it almost. I don't even want to run to catch up to it. I just want to shut it out and everything to stop so that I can just be in my own little box of treasure, of my own little meanness. So that's, it kind of does feel like when you're just in shock almost, just trying to process what's going on because there's just so much. Would you agree there, Kate?
Yeah, and I'd say on top of that, and I think we both felt this, is that because it isn't something like a tragedy or grief or something, and the world is kind of just continuing, that there's also this weird disconnect in that feeling in itself of being like, I really just want to shut the world out. I want to just kind of press pause and not catch up later, but just kind of opt out for a bit. However, because it's like internalized, like work still has to happen, or friends are still messaging, or, shit still needs to get done. And that sort of feeds a resentment, or at least it has for me, which is being like, why do I have to get up and go to work? Or like, why did I make a plan? Or, oh, I've got to do a podcast recording. No, just kidding. But, like lots of things, like, or just, oh God, I haven't done the washing, like, whatever it is. And that being really hard because you can't actually do what you feel like you want to do, which is just escape. And that can kind of, I feel like that's what's kept me in it for longer, is actually being really frustrated by the fact that I can't, I guess, wallow the way I feel like I need to, and like a healthy wallow with no freaking interruptions, not having to explain myself to anyone, not being like, you should be worried about me, more just like, please don't worry, I'll reach out if I need to. But really, I just want to fuck off, and I want everyone else to fuck off. And like, that's okay. That's okay. And so, yeah, I've been frustrated by, general life rearing its ugly head and still existing. How dare it, whilst I feel this way,
Yeah. Oh, that's actually so funny because, yeah, how dare life continue on when I, the main character in my movie, I'm not coping with it.
Yeah.
Um, and something that I talked about a little bit, I think with you, Kate, as well, but I think I did talk about it inside the group too, was about how when you sometimes just need to sit in the shit, and there comes a point where it will start to just smell really bad, where you kind of go and start to do something about it. Like sometimes, like you said, the healthy wallowing that needs to happen, but there comes a little push point where it just kind of, you're like, oh my God, this actually smells really bad. I should shower. I should brush my teeth. I should change the sheets. And for me, this has taken a longer time than usual. So that makes me think that I have something wrong with me, and then again, it's the bully demon and the, who the fuck do you think you are to be thinking like this or talking like this or acting this way or saying no to this. And it's just really interesting. And I think Walnut, Kate and I were talking offline about, it almost feels like a bit of a growth period. And so, Kate, I'd love for you to talk about this little thing about how growth hurts, because I think that's really opened my eyes to this other perspective of like, oh, maybe I'm not like clinically depressed. Maybe it's actually, I'm just in another transitional phase of a new up leveling or a new coming of age thing or something like that. So I'd love, Kate, for you to just start talking about the growth hurts that we already kind of covered in our personal lives.
For sure. I think what's interesting is you said maybe it's not like clinical depression, maybe it's growth, maybe it's both, in that sense of I think when you said it's taking longer, I think it's that idea of, when I was younger, I definitely was very much like work hard, play hard. We're younger, you got the energy, I suppose, but also you're trying to carve out your little space in the world, right? And now I think it's hard to like it's painful, I guess, to sort of level up in a sense, because without necessarily taking the time to really consider what it is that needs to change. So I feel like potentially these sort of feelings of like despair, or I don't know what I want in life, or where am I going, or I don't even have any of those thoughts, I just really want to switch off for a while. I think potentially that's part of the growing pain of actually being like, oh, I need to sit in my feelings. And then to a point where maybe the snapping out of it is more just being like, oh, I've had a little bit of a revelation. Whereas for me, not necessarily everyone, not even you necessarily, but like when I was younger, it would be like, oh, you don't feel like going out, just force yourself, you'll be fine. Or, oh, another work week. Well, that's what you got to do to make the money. And just sort of like never really allowing myself to really sit and digest those things, trying to either distract or push through or feel shame or guilt of, or like ungratefulness if I had those feelings. So I think now there are a little bit of build up, there's a bit of an avalanche, there's that thing still of being like, you shouldn't focus on what you appreciate, focus on things could be so much worse. Someone else has it so much worse. And what I'm trying to do now is combat that and be like, my feelings still matter and they're here for a reason. And if I don't acknowledge it, if I keep shoving them away, this will just continue. And that's scary and painful because what letting them in is sort of like uncharted territory. Like you said, oh, this is lasting longer than it should. Like, oh shit, what if I don't snap out of it? But I think that's part of it. But yeah, other than that as well, I think the things that are triggering it, at least in my life, is over the last couple of years, I feel like I've been more assertive in my work life. And, we've talked a lot about, eyes open to patriarchal norms that once you can see, you can't unsee, kind of the taking of the pill in the matrix and being like, oh no, this is shit. If I'd known that, I wouldn't have taken the pill. We've taken the pill, and seeing it can be quite overwhelming and quite exhausting. And that's painful too, because now I'm in a situation where I could see it and go, oh, what's the point of the battle? Or see it and have my little battle. But the option I don't have is to not see it. And that's actually really frustrating in itself too, being like, now I've consciously got to choose whether to take a stand or not. And it's a lot more frequent than you think. And that's fucking exhausting. So anyway, that was a long tangent, but I think that's what we've been talking about. And I think growing pains, rage, fatigue from rage, energy being sapped, feeling feelings and allowing them in, all of that's kind of come together in like this cocktail of oh, I want to shut down from the world. And when you say all of that stuff, it's like, God, no wonder. It's actually quite a lot.
Yeah, I love that. That was a really good long answer. And it reminds me of like, I was chatting with my friend Rose, who's done like my astrology chart thing, and she was telling me she had a little look at like where I am in my life and something about the planet Pluto, and which is like the planet of like basically like the death tarot card, like change and transition and stuff like that. And she was like, basically just get ready for the long haul with this, and which makes me feel like it's here to stay, and it's this transitional period of understanding that this is how I am going to be now. And like you say, we've taken the pill, this is how we see life, and unfortunately it's just not very nice at the moment. But there will come a time when this transition, however long it takes, please not be any longer than this, but when I get on the arse end of it, I will be a changed person. I will be the person that speaks in a certain way. And I love, Kate, we were talking offline about don't interrupt me, can I just finish my sentence? And you said that like you've done it so much lately that now it's quite normal for you to have, I'm doing air quotes, a confronting statement of, let me just finish before you continue talking, whereas for me, I'm like, I could never imagine saying that to anybody in my whole life, apart from maybe Geordie. But yeah, so it's just this what you were saying reminds me of like I feel like it's here to stay. So how am I going to navigate through getting used to that this feeling of Weltschmerz and melancholy and despair is here to stay? And it's not to say I have a bleak life and that I'm like, can't get out of bed every single day. I still feel joy, but it's just understanding these emotions, these like taboo emotions, these little hidden emotions a little bit more. And so I love that you brought up rage, because, well, I feel like we always come back to like patriarchy and things like that, but rage is something that as women we don't get to experience or show quite a lot. And so Kate, I'll get you to please go back to this tired and anger feeling, because I know we've talked about this a little bit and it's actually been a really interesting discussion to start. So let's verge onto this tired and anger go together. Hurt and anger go together.
Yeah, so I was talking with a friend who was reading a book, which I can't remember the name of, but it was really interesting anyway. And she said, quite often people about how you feel, and she's like, oh, I'm really tired. I'm tired. But and in that way, not like, oh, I need to sleep, but that existentially, I am tired, fatigued. And she said that it was that part of the, like an article in the book was that women tend to use that term, I'm so tired, as a replacement for anger, because we've had to internalize our anger. And so really what we're tired of is having to keep our anger in. And that's the best way to sort of express it. I'm just really tired. Or even if like you do let slip of an anger, I'm sorry, I've just been really tired lately. It's sort of this thing, whereas men obviously have their own issues with anger, and as much as that's a kind of catch-all for every emotion that they have, it's like, oh, you're sad, punch a wall or whatever. So that's not good either. But talking about kind of women, it really resonated with me, because I thought, when am I angry, or when am I able to let anger out in a healthy way? And I think that's true of almost everyone anyway, right? Because anger is seen as a very destructive, aggressive, just bad emotion. And it's of course not. It's the way you use your anger, or the way you let it out. Like if I went into the woods and just screamed, I'm not hurting anyone, right? Like I'm not, blowing up buildings in war, or I'm not, punching a partner or something like that. If I just let out some good old-fashioned rage, I'm not actually hurting anyone. And that is a real thing people can do. And I think the reason I've been having it bubble up, which is what you've been talking about, is having to confront lots of issues that are kind of exhausting. And they're exhausting because they're angering, and they're angering because they are constant and really embedded, and I'm now trying to deconstruct them. So
And unfair.
and unfair.
Really unfair, yeah. Sorry.
And I think that was the example you brought up, was, the interrupting thing. So people do it all the time. It's not always a, bad thing. I interrupt my friends when you're excited and you're trying to tell a story or whatever. But professionally, again, quite often women get spoken over. And even when the question is directed at me and I'm responding, I realized quite often I can only get through about half of my answer before I'm interrupted. Not always by men, sometimes men, women. I just realized in a professional environment, a lot of the time people are really defensive or really wound up. And so they jump in. I could do it sometimes, and I'm trying to hold myself accountable for it too, and make sure I don't do that. But yeah, it happened a while ago. Obviously it didn't happen a while ago. It happens all the time, but a while ago it happened in a really blunt way that was sort of just, I don't know what happened with me, but I just thought, are you joking? You asked me a question and I'm barely through my first sentence in a 20-minute diatribe you've just laid down, and can't even get one sentence out before you've interjected again. And so I just said, I went, sorry, it'd be really great if I could finish my sentence. It's really important I get my thoughts out so you can respond accordingly. Because obviously until I finish my sentence, you don't even know how to respond. And everyone took it fine. Like the guy took it fine. I didn't get too much guilt about thinking, oh, I'm going to be seen as a difficult woman. But there was this little thing of being like, yeah, I've never done that before. And once I started doing it, I wouldn't say I'm doing that every day, but fuck, did I notice it happens a lot. And sometimes I will wait till the third interruption. I'll be like trying to say the same thing for 3 times. And on the third time I go, be really great if I could finish my sentence. That's the way that I've decided to phrase it, which is like, it would be really great, in the sense of it wouldn't be really great. It would just be fucking polite, and the bare like necessity of communication to let someone finish their thought. But I've kind of softened it, I guess. So sometimes I say, don't interrupt me, but a lot of the time it'd be really great if I could finish my sentence. And it's just kind of like, it is exhausting. And I'm tempering my own anger in being interrupted by making sure my response to that, like the level up, is still quite diluted. I haven't leveled up to a point of being like, hey, can you shut the fuck up and let me finish, you rude asshole? Like, no, I don't do that. I want to do that so much. And I think that's where rage and fatigue and exhaustion comes into it, because it's like I'm constantly monitoring myself to come off as palatable and polite, even in the face of impoliteness.
Mm.
And if I could sum up being a woman, that's that.
Yeah, yeah. I feel that on a deeper level than just listening to that. That really like hit me in the feels so much. Walnut, also last week's episode with Kiki, we talked a little bit about sacred rage and modalities that you can do like swamping and stuff, and she recommended the book Pussy. I forgot the lady's name, but that kind of talks about this rage thing. And so if you want to dig into that a little bit more, check out last week's episode as well. But that book has been recommended by like so many different people to me. But I don't really know how, Kate, we can like navigate through these feelings. Like I feel like I'm at the point now where I'm aware of it. I feel like shit. I feel despair. I feel disgusting. I've kind of started doing, getting a little bit shaky voice. I've kind of like just between today and yesterday started doing little baby steps. You know how I always talk about like just getting up to brush the teeth and ticking the little things off the list. Like, so I've started to do that, but it really has been 2 weeks of, I still feel this way. And I even interrupted you before. It's not fair. And I don't want to do this. And I don't have to be that. Why do I have to be the person that has to notice this or feel this or be the things? And I don't know what to do. And like, what do you have any like, I mean, I know that you're not like a this is what you should do person, but like I want to discuss this more because I feel hopeless. It's
Yeah,
fucking weird. It's horrible.
I know. I'm with you. And I think I would love to be able to go, this is what you should do, because that would be a great answer to have. But I don't. I think we can like, let's think about it though. And I guess if you look at it, again, it's not trying to put a positive light on it, but it is trying to, I guess, frame it, which is being like, you've always had this here, and it's probably just now that it's sort of being acknowledged. And so looking at that as, again, the way we've termed it as growth is quite a positive thing, right? Growth is good. It
Yeah.
can hurt. Growing pains are real, psychologically as well as physically, it seems. I think also knowing that, like you said, you still can feel joy or enjoy yourself or have, days which are just neutral or whatever. I think there's sort of a hopefulness of being like, this feeling is going to be now a part of the palette of the feelings that are on your, like, what palette's like a paint thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just another spectrum of the rainbow. It's what we can't let it do is sort of overshadow all the other colors. It's just an addition. So it's kind of new in the sense of, I think it's been sort of stifled maybe, or just kind of, when you talk about something like depression, that's something that needs fixing, right? Whereas just having a bit of melancholy or a bit of, an existential despair isn't necessarily, like you say, it's not, it can have the same, I don't know, symptoms as depression, or maybe it's a depressing state, but maybe the way to reframe it is that's not something to heal, it's something to sort of nurture it in its own validity, which is saying, yeah, it sucks that I care and it sucks that I feel all of this, but the alternative would be being stuck in the matrix, for lack of a better analogy, which is, the ignorance is bliss thing. Yeah, it's true, but we're not ignorant, and the world needs people who aren't. And if we treat it as a burden, which it is, it's not the worst burden to bear. Even having this conversation, if there's been people who haven't even clicked into some of these feelings yet, or haven't been able to sort of vocalize it or whatever, maybe even this conversation is helpful in it enough that it makes the sort of burden worthwhile. It's a stretch. I'll give it that. I'm working it out. I'm working it out myself. Also, and this could be a little bit of a stretch, so tell me if you think this is too far. Sometimes I enjoy feeling like shit, which seems like a complete paradox.
No, I
But
do.
yeah, it's this part of being like, if you look at it super objectively, it's going, I'm not going to just pretend. I'm not going to just power through. I'm actually honoring myself by feeling bad. I'm actually showing myself some respect and some space and some, again, like validation. And sometimes I'm like, ooh, I'll schedule a breakdown for this weekend. You know what I mean? Like, in the
Yeah.
sense of, I'm not breaking down. I'm just sort of, I guess, almost like relaxing into a blob. And it's not attractive. It's not how I'd want to stay forever. But it really helps when I have to suck myself back into a normal human being, that I've actually got to relax for a little bit. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I
am
don't
really
know.
glad that you raised this, Kate, because just to share an example, Walnut, I actually used to, in the times of like when I was an early recovering people pleaser, and I'd go out when I didn't want to. And I still do. No, I don't really a lot anymore. But when I used to go out when I didn't want to, and I'd drink so that I drink to feel or just to not feel really, and just to like, whatever. And sometimes I wouldn't even be that hungover, but I would pretend that I was dying hungover just so I could eat disgusting food, so that I could watch TV all day, so that I could stay in my pajamas, not leave bed, probably not even shower till the next day. And I would pretend that because I didn't give myself the space to have that disgusting time, which is actually a really cathartic, delicious experience at the same time as it is quite deep and depressing and dark. Sometimes it's not even positive or negative. It is just another. So I like that analogy of it's just another color on the color wheel of our paint board life.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted that, just reminded me of that, Kate. I just wanted to share that example of sometimes I would even pretend to feel worse than what I was feeling just so I could have that time for myself. So yeah, that self-respect, I think, is a really great way to coin it.
Well, it's just interesting, because what it's saying is that the physical hangover or cold or sickness is more real, or more valid than your brain needing a little break, or a little bit of a pick me up, or a little bit of a, or your spirit, I suppose. But like that idea of like, oh, you've got a bad cold. Oh, okay. Rest and lots of fluids and all that stuff. And it's like biological, and it's tried and, true and tested, and everyone kind of knows that's what you need to do to get over it. And it's interesting because, like, having anxiety as a kid, if I don't want to go to school because I'm having a freak out, what was my option? Pretend to be sick. As an adult at work, when I'm really struggling or whatever, what was the way out? Pretend to be sick. And it's like, wow, I wasn't pretending. I was pretending to be physically sick. But what I wasn't, again, able to address, too young to be aware of as a child, and let's face it, this is kind of what's modeled all around us, mostly that fake a sick day or whatever, when you just need the break. You actually are sick. And like, not I need to blow my nose sick, but in a, you need that day, and that should be valid. But we've kind of not ever been allowed that. There aren't mental health days off normally, in most places. Maybe there are in a couple places now, but you know, it's just an interesting, I don't know. I think that's where maybe almost, it's not just us, but I feel like maybe generationally that's where we're at, where it's kind of like, I thought to myself on a terrible project, like, if I got a little hit by a car and I had a good excuse, this is the excuse thing, I guess, I'd have
Mm,
a great excuse not to be at the shoot, the next day. And then I thought, well, shit, if that's what I'm thinking, then my brain's been a little hit by a car for sure.
yeah.
Like, I don't actually have to be physically maimed to not be well enough to attend work the next day. But we've never been told that. That's never been demonstrated. That's never been encouraged. Yet, when I have done that, when I've been like, wow, what will happen if I tell the truth on this one? Luckily, not always, but luckily on the worst situation, and I was pretty honest, they understood. And I realized, wow, what if I ask for what I need rather than pretend it's something else? Um, and I think that's been maybe where a little bit of fatigue stuff's come in, because I'm kind of doing that more. And it is useful, but it's also quite tiring because it does feel like you do sometimes have to over justify yourself. People are like, what do you mean you don't want to come out? And it's like, oh, I'm just really feeling unmotivated right now, and I think it's best for me to stay in. That's where I think the growing pain come back to, because it's sort of like that's where you find out whether people are going to understand or they're not. And then you might have to go ahead and reassess some friendships and all sorts. And it's like, oh God, I just wanted a day off. And now I'm reassessing all my relationships with everyone I've ever met. It's exhausting. It is
Yes.
exhausting.
Oh my gosh, I'm glad you circled back to this, because I was thinking, like, with going back to the growing pain thing, and I wanted to ask you about it, so let's just segue there already. But it's this also like adding to my like melancholy and to my Weltschmerz is also this like, it's like the rose tinted glasses of people come off, and it's this like disappointment in people or in society or humanity. And it's like, I just want to put the glasses back on. I just want to put the glasses back on, and I'm not ready to think about all these things consistently all the time to I almost don't even have the time. It's not about time, actually. I don't have the capacity to process them because it's too big. I spiral, like literally one thing of like doing one little walnutting, and then it spirals into this whole other thing about the world. you know?
Yeah, and the rose tinted glasses is really interesting. So we've talked all about our eyes being open and the matrix and the rose tinted, all that stuff. And adversely as well, I guess what you're trying to teach people is to take the rose tinted glasses off them about myself or about yourself, which is like, for me, I think you and I are both similar, is I've sort of been the life of the party, and I, can put a few drinks away, and I can be the silly one or the wild one or whatever. And there's certain friendship groups where that's who I've been, and I liked that, but it's also now become almost a little bit of something I've been shackled to. And I've realized I don't like it as much, and not like anything against my friends, but like I don't really like who I am because I'm trying to fit into that person I was 5 years ago, let's say, right? But what I've realized that's maybe pulls me back into it is because there's an expectation, because those friends don't see me in my other layers or my other, like parts of life, or the other sort of Kates that I can be, or the Kate that I'm turning into or wanting to be or striving to become. So I think that's where the added work comes into, is that you're putting sort of new boundaries, or you're putting a new version of yourself kind of out there, but you can't force them to take the glasses off either. So if they're looking through the glasses, they're being like, oh, you're not being yourself, or this is weird, or I'm annoyed by this. There's actually not a lot we can do. You can have a conversation and say, yeah, I just really felt like, I don't really want to drink that much now, or yeah, I'd rather meet for a lunch than going out to a bar, or whatever. You can say those things, you can be communicative, you could even talk about, I'm going on a journey or whatever. Ultimately, you can't force those people to then embrace the new version of yourself, or understand it, or even like it. And so that's where the kind of added work comes in. It's like, okay, yeah, I've taken the glass of myself, but people still see me the way they see me because of their experience of me and the history. And I'm sure I do that with a million other people too, but that's what makes it hard, like with my work. I guess I've been sort of given quite a gift in a lot of ways because of freelance, that a lot of the places that I'll go and start at, I get to be the don't interrupt me boss woman, not in a rude way, but I'm even diluting it right now.
Yeah.
It's so knee jerk, but I can be that person from the get-go. So there's no confusion, there's no, oh, I thought this isn't the Kate I know. People haven't met me before. So I have this nice clean slate kind of going on with some of the clients I kind of work with that are new. I don't get that all the time, but I can imagine people, in the same career or in a job for a long time, suddenly not wanting to be the certain person, or wanting to speak up more, whatever. There's this crazy knee-jerk people have of being like, whoa, you're stepping out of your little cookie cutter frame here. How dare you? when that behavior could be completely acceptable by like Chatterbox Susan, but you're not Chatterbox Susan, so you don't get to step out of line. And that's where all the pain and the confrontation and the sort of exhaustion, rage, all those things kind of come from too, which is being like, oh, I'm already wading through my own, you know, feelings. And now you're throwing your feelings and your expectations of me into the mix, which is just weighing me down even more and making this so much harder and making my progress so much slower. And I don't even know how to wrap that up other than it's fucking annoying and it's hard.
Yeah, it fucking it's really bad, but maybe I think Walnut, I feel like I just want to share the stuff that I have been doing over these past couple of weeks, and I feel like I've been quite transparent inside the walnut tree and kind of like giving like little updates of stuff that I've been doing, and I actually find that that's been kind of helpful to me. Maybe it's because like I feel like Walnut Wednesday is like my little purpose and my little thing, so it makes me feel like I am giving to that, which I am because it's mine. But things that I have sort of been doing and in the day by day are really, really small walnuttings. Like the other day, I was so overwhelmed. And then I was messaging my dad about something, and I just felt like he was responding in like a dad way. Like we weren't talking with voice. So I was like, oh my God, he's mad at me. And then I started spiraling, like, oh, fuck's sake. Like, as if I don't have enough on my plate, and now my dad is mad, not mad, just disappointed in me and something I said, all because he said, like, no, and I read it in my head the wrong way or something like that, you know? And so hitting that on the head and messaging him like, hey dad, are you mad at me? And then he said like, no, why? And I was like, just, you know, bit of like self-consciousness. And he was like, okay, laughing emoji. And so yeah, so that's one thing that I've tried to do a little bit. I got to like a little point where yesterday I changed my sheets. That sounds like a really simple, easy sentence, but that took 2 weeks to like get up and actually physically do. And the other thing that I have done, which I think is a really key thing to do, but I think does take a lot of build up to get out of your little, I wouldn't even say it's not get out of the hole completely, but it's just to take those first couple steps off the ladder before it gets to this point. But I did a little cull on my social media, and I remember, Kate, I was saying to you, like, if I didn't have Walnut Wednesday, I would delete Facebook. I would delete Facebook and Instagram and blah blah blah. And I'm not going to do that because it does bring me joy to be active in my group and things like that. But what I did yesterday was I went through a whole bunch of Facebook friends. I had over 1,000. It was actually ridiculous. It was like 1,100 and something. And I was like, I don't know some of these people, or I don't want some of these people in my space. So I got it down to like 800 or something like that. And at the same time as going through deleting it, and I probably missed some because it was just so many, but also noticing that stuff on my feed and really utilizing the snooze button, or, you know, that on Facebook, you have the option to snooze someone for 30 days if you don't really like what you're seeing. So really doing a cull of that and muting people's stories so it doesn't pop up at like the top of my social media. That created already so much space for me to breathe. And from episode 121, I felt like I couldn't breathe from not my social media and at all in a singular context, but it's actually just created a little bit more space for me. I'm trying to think of any other tangible things that I've done, Walnut, that have kind of like come with the flows of this little funk that I'm going through. But Kate, have you got any tangible thingies that you've been doing recently that have kind of lifted the burden a little?
Kind of. I'm not sure I've been as intentional. I really like the culling thing. I don't have much social media presence at all, which I'm lucky I don't need to do. So if I am feeling that way, I think it is a great idea to not look at stories and not look at the news, because I've definitely gotten myself in sort of a go on a wormhole looking at videos about like police brutality or Karen videos or whatever, and being like, it's feeding off my own rage about the world anyway, and just kind of reconfirming everything I feel and making it seem so all encompassing. And it's sort of like, if you look for that, yeah, it's depressing, you're going to find it. But like, do I need to feed that part of me? No, I probably shouldn't. I'm lucky in the sense of, again, because I'm freelance, that my work has calmed down recently. And so I've been really being a lot more kind of decisive about what time I spend in workplace and what time I spend to relax, and actually actively being like, when I'm not working, don't look at your emails. Don't like just check in on what's come in, because I do that. My emails are like on my phone, and there are like work chats and things that are on my phone. And so it's really like a habit for me to check just in case, and then just, oh, I'll quickly reply. And I'm trying not to do that with work so much. I feel like, again, that intrusiveness is sort of like, well, I've got to really honor my own time. And if that means like shutting stuff out, or, muting apps or whatever, take the 2 minutes to go to your settings to do that, so that you get the half day of peace that you need, rather than constantly getting annoyed by your phone dinging or whatever. So I think that's probably the thing, is I haven't been overly intentional, but I think that's what it needs, is intent, right? So feeling those feelings, I think the reason that they linger is because they're interrupted, and they're not given this sort of life cycle that they need. It's suddenly like, yeah, I was feeling like shit, but now I've gone out on a Saturday night anyway, and now Sunday I feel wretched and 100 times worse, which means I'm starting from zero again. I have to work my way back up, rather than doing the thing which is, oh, you know what, I'm really not up for Saturday. And maybe you get to, finish that sort of cycle of ennui, of melancholy or whatever, a little bit, not even faster, but a little bit more entirely, rather than these
Yeah.
drips and drags sort of, seeping in the cracks, because it's sort of still there, not digested properly. Like, I think you talked about that, like feeling there's food in your throat. And I felt that. And I once went actually to the doctor about it. I was like, oh, I for sure have a lump in my throat, and there's something wrong with me. And it turned out it was stress. And the reason I was feeling it is because actually we have that there all the time. It's just that I was so stressed that my body started to recognize what it felt like when I swallowed, which is something that we do automatically. And so we don't normally notice. And basically it was like hysterical. It was my body starting to notice things because I was so stressed out. People can get it. I'm going to say it's like a little announcement. If anyone's got any weird things, sometimes if you haven't acknowledged that you're really stressed or anxious, you might start having trouble taking deep breaths. Again, not being able to breathe properly. You might start becoming weirdly aware of your tongue in your mouth. Like, where does it sit normally? Stress, yeah. Swallowing. There's a few other ones. I'm trying to think. I've had all of these, by the way. Like really weirdly obsessive things, and thinking there's something wrong with me. And basically it's just that you're so stressed out, you start manifesting it in your body. And I think it's your body's way of being like, if this is what gets you to the doctor and figures out that you're stressed, then so be it. Hives is another one. People start getting rashes. So again, that was just a little bit of public service announcement. But it's just really interesting, because I feel like for me, once I had hives, but I didn't realize, or I wasn't acknowledging that I was stressed. I was like, I must have bed bugs. I was at uni, so I was like, I must have bed bugs. And I went home for the weekend, and I still was getting fresh like spots. And mum said, are you feeling stressed? And I went, do you know what? Yeah, I think I am. And literally within a few hours, they started going away, because I'd acknowledged what I was actually feeling. So I think if there's anything to say, it's like, yeah, growing is painful, and ignoring it won't make it go away. Maybe just embrace the pain, and sort of, like when you're sick and you get to sit on the sofa with a blanket and watch your movies, and you're a little bit miserable and you're blowing your nose, but you're also like, well, I'm so glad I'm resting. Maybe that's the the cure. The thing that we can do is be like, well, let's give into it in a healthy way, and let ourselves, feel it, and then we expel it and hopefully are sort of stronger for it later.
I love that. It reminds me of my friend Rachel Symington, who's been on the podcast. She has her like crone, she calls it her uniform. And crone is like when you're menstruating, when you're bleeding. And it just kind of made me think of like, oh, what's my uniform for this? What are my go-tos for the days where I need it? And it's not actually a goddess day, it's actually a separate thing because it's its own feeling processing day. I don't know, maybe we can come up with a name for it eventually, but what are the go-to things that I need? So for me, usually it is potentially an alcoholic beverage, not in binge drinky sense, but in like just to really just relax a little bit. It's definitely no bra. It's definitely a couple of like snacks, depending on how I'm feeling on the day. Sometimes they're like dirty, deep fried things, and sometimes they're like a really yummy, like cracker and cheesy thing or something like that. And really starting to think about what your uniform is for this feeling. And I think that's maybe something I might start like not preparing for, not like getting ready for it, but like having those little modalities in place. Because when you're sick, right, when you know you're getting cold, you go straight out, you get the lollies, you get the Lemsip, you get the lemon and honey, you get your hot water bottle, you have this uniformed preparation that you do. So maybe almost making one for feelings like this. I really like that. Thank you.
That's a really good conclusion to come to. I thought about it too, is like, there's also this difference of when you proper wallow in that sit in the shit thing where you're like, oh, I haven't showered. But then there is a way, if you thought about it more uniform, which is like, yeah, I'm going to be in my pajamas today, but I'm going to shower, I'm going to wash myself, and then I'm going to get some clean pajamas, and I've got my snacks in, and I'm going to sit on the couch. And so, yep, I'm not going out anywhere. I'm not dressed up, but I'm doing this intentionally as a act of like self, care. So I like that too. And I think that's where embracing it, which I've been trying to do a little bit more, because I realized I was thinking, oh, do I do that all the time? And I thought, no, sometimes I'm feeling oddly energetic and happy. And even if I'm not going anywhere, I still wear jeans and a cute top around my flat alone because I'm like, I want to feel nice. So if I can do that, then why don't I think, oh, well, I'm going to feel comfortable in a way that doesn't feel lazy or bad or, dirty or anything. It's more just like, no, that's how I want to feel today. So I'm going to get changed and cleaned up to get back into pajamas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a nice sort of conclusion to come to. And I think, again, it's honoring the stage that you're in. And look, it is really annoying. It's hard to be positive, and it's hard when, like, I had a Subway sandwich that wasn't cut properly and legitimately cried. Like, was like, whoa, that's quite a lot, Kate. Like, you don't normally cry because of this, but I was proper just like, I think I stamped my foot like a 2-year-old because it was just, I had so many emotions, and it was like, not this too. But weirdly felt better after my little breakdown. Then I ate my crappy sandwich and was like, you're fine. But it's not fun. It's not fun having a cold either, but give yourself the rest and give yourself the space to recover, and you're more likely to come out of it quicker, I suppose.
I love this. I actually feel already like I've taken another little notch on the ladder from this conversation. And Walnut, I forgot to mention that I literally voice memoed Kate like crying the other day, and it was just like I just needed someone to listen to me. So that was another tangible thing that I did. I've done a lot. I've actually done a lot considering I have been feeling like a piece of shit. But yeah, no, this conversation, Kate, has been so wonderful. If the Walnuts don't know where to find you, where can they connect with you more if they are like, oh, I like what this girl says?
I'm like almost considering giving my address because mail would be so fun, like a letter. But no, like I said, I'm not on social media a lot, but you can find me on Instagram at Miss K Bromley. And I mean, Facebook is Kate Bromley as well. But yeah, I don't really have any like websites or anything like that. I am working on a new little show reel though, as a little side thing to kind of, I guess, sort of show myself what I've been doing work-wise because I feel like I don't have a lot to show for it, and that's my little way of working towards that. So once that's released, I might put that on the walnut tree or something so people can check it out.
That would be
It's a nice safe space, isn't it? So yeah.
cool. Awesome. Well, Kate, thank you as always for being like the light of my life. Do you have anything on your heart that you feel like you just want to add or contribute a little more to this conversation? Is there anything you feel like left out?
I feel like I would love the like people listening if they have resonated firstly, but also what they do, or if they like that idea. I think like we've come to this quite organically, that kind of idea of sort of treating it like a uniform or an illness, or giving yourself the space. It'd be really cool to just hear what other people thought. That's I feel like we've talked it out quite healthfully. Like I feel oddly better for it as well. And I guess the last thing would be like, if you don't have a friend like I have in you, or you have in me, like you got to find someone, because honestly I think that might be one of the best medicines as well, because there are times where I don't want to talk to anyone, but I'll still talk to you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like there's special people that can kind of don't feel like an effort to kind of be yourself around when you're feeling like that, and feel like they'll just take that on face value. So I think that's pretty invaluable. And if you've got that, like use it and make that a stronger friendship, because I feel like that's gotten me through a lot for sure.
I love that because yeah, they're like little lighthouses, eh? They're just you're the ship in the harbor, just like fucking around on the waves, and there's the light showing you just like a little bit of like, hey, I'm here. Very
Yeah.
yeah, beautiful. I love that analogy. Well, I made that analogy. I said the analogy, but I like the what you said. Sorry.
Mm.
Waffling again. One last question for you, Kate. And I always ask, what does being a walnut mean to you? But I think in regards to this conversation of growth hurts and physical illness versus like being in your head and melancholy and all the things, how can you relate this to being a walnut? Like, do you have a little statement on what being a walnut
Mm.
means to you in regard to this topic?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, maybe being maybe when it comes to this is being brave, obviously, is quite the mantra, or the mantra, don't know how to say it. Kind of a key element of being a walnut is being brave. And I think maybe sometimes that's externalized quite a lot. So maybe in this context, it's being brave enough to sort of embrace who you were, who you are, who you're becoming, and embrace the sort of transition that it's in all its ugliness, in
Yeah.
all its shitness, in the fact that, yeah, it's great to have those powerful I did it moments, but also doing the work can sometimes mean feels like shit, and that there's sort of a courageousness about embracing that rather than trying to like power through. That's how I would relate it. It's like powering through isn't necessarily brave. That could be considered running away. Like embrace the shit and you're a walnut.
I love this. Being a walnut is embracing the shit instead of powering through. Walnut, if you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to share and tag me at Walnut Wednesday and Kate at Miss K Bromley. And like Kate mentioned, it would be really, really interesting to hear from you. So jump into my Facebook group, The Walnut Tree, and feel courageous enough to have a little share in there, because again, like going back really quickly to creating space and stuff, I consistently am removing inactive members or people who just like maybe joined the group a really long time ago and haven't really contributed since, because I want that space to be safe and sacred and delicious enough for you to feel like you've got a voice somewhere in the world. So I really want to invite that to be your place if you need to. So please feel encouraged to talk about this discussion more if you feel called. And Kate, Thank you. I love you. You always make me feel better. And thank you for visiting Walnut Wednesday again. Every 10-ish episodes now. It's in the tens somewhere. But yeah, I've expressed enough to you. But honestly, I just appreciate you so much, and I'm so lucky to call you my friend. So I love you.
I love you. I feel the same. And I think this is just like so helpful. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like just, just to have had a space to sort of digest all the shit we've been feeling in a way that's constructive and safe. It's like so helpful. Loved it.
Priceless. Love it. All right, Walnut, have a happy Walnut Wednesday, or not so happy if it isn't. And I will talk to you next week. And Kate, I will talk to you soon after this anyway. So love you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.